Lately, I've been struggling with negotiation.
Hey Nick, can I have a raise?
Absolutely not.
Aaron, can I borrow a cup of sugar?
No.
Hey, can I have a bite of that?
Let's face it, every interaction is a negotiation. But like you, dear Sumolings, I'm committed to self-improvement. So I'm seeking out some guidance, and I think I got just the friend to help. So we're gonna hop on a Zoom call and see if we can't learn a little bit about how to become a better negotiator. If you're struggling with negotiation in your life, whether it's job, personal, or out and about in the world, come on in and let's see if we can't learn something. Chris, what's up, man?
Oh, Jay, what's going on, man? How are you doing?
Are you in a secure location?
I am. We've secured the compound. We are currently in Tamarindo, Costa Rica, holding it down.
Copy that. So reason I'm calling is basically lately I've been really bad at negotiating, and I've realized that just in my day-to-day life. I remember you had said you read Chris Voss's book on negotiation, and then you also got to interview him for the Remote Work Academy series. So I figured you were the perfect person to ask about negotiation and maybe give me some tips and tricks to help me and any of our subscribers who are struggling too, some tips on how to negotiate better.
Yeah, man, absolutely. So, I mean, one of the things that I really liked about Chris Voss's style is that I think a lot of the time when we think of negotiation, we think of like kind of you're going in and you're driving a hard bargain and you're being really like kind of rough and it's combative. And the way he frames it is it's much more like a cooperative activity than it is like this combative, competitive style. And there's a lot of like reframing that he discusses. And one of the ones that I think is the most important, you should be going towards no. And it feels really counterintuitive, but the way he lays it out is, if you think about it for yourself, do you feel more comfortable if somebody stops you on the street and they're like, hey, do you have a minute to talk? What do you want to say?
No, I don't.
You want to say no. You don't want to say yes. It's like, yeah, please, why don't you take up as much of my time as you'd like? No, you want to say no. So no feels safe for people. No feels like they're keeping control. So instead of asking questions where you're trying to get to yes, you can reframe those same questions and try to get to no. And so an example of this would be like, instead of saying like, hey, do you have a minute to talk? You could say like, hey, would it be too much to ask to grab a minute of your time? And then you're kind of looking for a no there, right? Is it too much to ask? And you're like, no, it's not too much to ask.
Right,
so you're it allows you to open the door, but you're still keeping control. One of the ways I've used this, and I actually used this in my email reaching out to him to interview him, was instead of saying like, would it be possible to interview you? I said, would it be impossible to get an interview with you? So what do you want to say? You want to say, no, it wouldn't be impossible. You're opening the door, and then it allows for more communication to take place. So these small no's then lead to the ultimate yes at the end of the tunnel. When you're ultimately going for the yes, you want it to be a real yes. And the way to get to that yes is through a series of no's. And you talked about going into a negotiation. So it's something he talks about when you're going in that I really like. He calls it the accusation audit. The way this works is you want to know all of the reasons somebody won't want to do a deal with you, because oftentimes the reasons people don't want to do a deal are more important than the reasons they want to, because people are inherently like, it's that negativity bias. People are more afraid of losing things than they are of gaining something. So an accusation audit is before you're going into this interview, whether you're going in to negotiate like you're going to buy a car or you're trying to get a raise or something like that. Knowing all of the reasons somebody wouldn't want to agree to that beforehand and really going through like what he calls tactical empathy. You're using this tactical empathy where you're trying to empathize with the other side, understand where they're coming from, so then you can use that to better frame the negotiation. So if you're going into, say, a salary negotiation, what are all of the reasons your boss wouldn't want to give you a raise, or what would all of their fears be? And then you kind of create this accusation audit of the reasons. But as you're trying to get that yes, you really want to make sure you're removing the blockers first before you're going to the benefits. Or say you're doing a sales call. Say it's an AppSumo sales call and you're trying to close a deal for AppSumo. People have these like internal fears, and they might not even necessarily be able to verbalize them. But if you're able to verbalize them and then overcome those fears, you have to do that first before you start listing all of the benefits of why somebody would want to do the deal with you. So like, we're going to get you a ton of exposure, or we're going to introduce you to a new audience, but they might be like, hey, I'm worried it's going to devalue my product, or I'm worried it's going to cannibalize my current customers. And if you don't address those first, even if they're hearing all these benefits, they're still holding on to this internal fear. But if you can address that, it shows not only like, are you super in touch with them and you understand them as a person, but then you're removing those blockers. So now the negotiation can move forward unencumbered. Say you're going into, maybe it's not really a negotiation, but you're going into like an argument with a partner or something like that. And it's like, listen, I'm sure you think that I'm this, and I would understand if I come off as like a jerk or whatever it is. And then you kind of keep going where you're addressing the problems that they have with you or potentially have with you. Like they don't want to give until they feel like you understand.
Got it. Okay. So hypothetically, if I had a hypothetical girlfriend and I wasn't doing the dishes and we were about to get into a bit of a negotiation about it, I would come with this accusation audit and say, hey, listen, I know you think I'm a slob. I know you think I don't pull my weight around here. I know you think that, you know, I'm afraid of confrontation, but is it a but? And then you go into all the reasons.
No. And that's actually a crucial point is they should be the ones to stop you. You kind of want to leave those hanging there for them to respond to. And then he even talks about maybe going like a bit over the top or like going as deep as possible to the point where they're then like, no, it's not that bad. It's not that I think you're an absolute jerk. I just think that like you're not listening as well as you could here. So it's like you're kind of being your own worst critic for it. So then they don't have to.
Cool. All right. That's cool. I like that. Okay. What else? What else we got from Mr. Voss?
Yeah, so he talks about mirroring and labeling, and these are really cool. So mirroring is basically when you repeat back.
Sorry,
there's physical mirroring.
I thought it was something else.
Mirroring that you're doing. No, physical mirroring is absolutely a thing. We have mirror neurons in our mind, so you'll see that with like babies or people who are in a relationship. They'll just naturally tend to mirror without even necessarily thinking it. So it's like someone will kind of put their hand on their chin, and it won't always be like a perfect mirror, but it'll kind of be like similar. But then like verbal mirroring would be repeating back the last, say like 3 to 5 words that somebody said, or like if not the last, then kind of like the most important ones. So if somebody's like, you know, they're talking about the deal and they're like, and so I'm just not sure that I'm going to be able to get my team on board for this. And you're like, get your team on board? And then it kind of forces them to, they feel prompted to open up more. And it's like, yeah, well, I just don't know if my CEO is going to be interested in it. And the CFO is off on vacation right now. So I don't even know if I'd be able to get in touch with him. So I'm just not sure if we could move forward. You're not sure if we could move forward? Yeah, well, and so it kind of sparks the conversation, keeps it moving. It shows that you're listening to them, you're iterating it back to them, and now you're giving them more space to keep talking.
I'm sure there's a component of it that's both like linguistic, but also emotional. You're kind of mirroring their emotions. You're picking up on the fact that they feel hesitancy.
So you're actually getting ahead to what he calls labeling, and they do kind of, they're blended together because they're very similar, but labeling is exactly that. When you're calling out like emotions or things like that the other person's displaying, and you never want to say like you are this, because that comes across as like an accusation. But if you say like, it looks like you're upset with this, it sounds like you're frustrated, it seems like you're not quite sure whether or not this is the right deal. So things like, it looks like, it sounds like, it feels like. So that way it's just like, hey, this is just my opinion. But I want to kind of label what I'm seeing on you. And what's cool about this is it's almost more powerful when you do it for a negative emotion. And that sounds counterintuitive. And that's what's so cool about his framework, is so much of it sounds counterintuitive, but then when you understand it, you realize how powerful it is. So say you were kind of like responding in kind of a snappy way, but you don't even necessarily do it. And it's like, hey man, like it sounds like you're getting frustrated with this conversation. And then that reflects it back on you where you're like, am I getting frustrated? Like maybe I am and I'm not even realizing it. But framing it that way, what they found in research is that when you label a negative emotion, it lowers that negative emotion. But what's also really cool is when you label a positive emotion, it amplifies the positive emotion. So it's like, hey man, it sounds like you're getting really excited about this deal. Like it looks like, I can see the smile on your face. It looks like you're really down to do this. And another cool piece is that even if you mislabel, so if maybe like you're more like worried than you are frustrated, and I say you're frustrated, then you kind of go back, it like sets it back, it kind of buys you time to be like, hey, am I? And if I'm not, now you elaborate on it. So if it's like, hey man, it sounds like this is making you frustrated. And then if you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not frustrated. It's not that I'm frustrated. It's just like I'm
Right.
worried that what this could do to my customer base or something like that. So it's a really cool thing to do where, again, you're reflecting things back that you're seeing the other person displaying. And then it almost allows them to get more in touch with where they're at. And then they can explain that more to you because, again, there's so many processes going on within our minds and our bodies at any given minute. And we're only aware of a very small amount of them. So having somebody help bring that out in you can actually feel really liberating. The ultimate way to negotiate and the ultimate power you can develop within a negotiation is being able to disagree without coming across as disagreeable. And a big part of that is always being appreciative that the other person is at the table with you. If you're thinking of a metaphor, I think a lot of old school negotiation was seen as like you're sitting on opposite sides of the table and you're battling it out. In kind of this new way of negotiating, which I'm sure is how most successful negotiations have always worked, is like you want to see it as you're sitting on the same side of the table and you're both trying to find a way where you're both going to get what you're looking for.
I think that's a great start. I really appreciate the conversation. Sounds like I got to read the book. What's the name of the book again?
Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss.
Never Split the Difference. Yeah, I'm going to check that out because I think just reading it would reiterate a lot of this and dive into some of it more. But this is a great start. I love conversations like this because it's like very simple, actionable stuff that if you just kind of remind yourself of in like the ensuing weeks after like having a conversation like this and right away start putting these things into those negotiations where I felt like I was coming up short, it's an easy return on investment and a good way to like continue to level up your life and your self-worth for sure.
Absolutely. And I mean, you're in negotiations all the time, whether or not they feel like formal negotiations, whether you're trying to schedule something with a coworker or you're in a relationship or you're, going to get food or something like that. You're constantly running into negotiations all day long. So if you can improve that, it, like you said, it'll have a massive ROI.
Yeah, well, in that case, man, I appreciate you picking up, even though you're down in Costa Rica. Enjoy it.
All right, man. Sounds good. Good to see you.
Can you do one more thing? Can you tell all the beautiful people watching this to subscribe?
Hey, everybody, like, subscribe, leave a comment, but definitely like, subscribe, and also leave a comment. Would it be too much to ask for you to leave a comment?
That's good. Awesome. All right, appreciate it, man.
All right. Talk to you later.
All right, peace.